welcome to a very extra special episode of Rebels Fantasy Focus. I've got a very special guest with me today in studio, so please do give us your comments and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and you're very welcome to this very special pre-recorded episode of Rebels Fantasy Focus. I'm joined today by our resident Arsenal fan, or one of them, Miss Melina. How are you doing, Miss Melina?
Hi, Rebel. It's great to be on here, and it's great to talk something else other than Man United and Arsenal rivalry. And I know you guys are playing today, but I'm so glad to be back on here, and I'm glad to talk Fantasy Premier League with you.
Thanks very much, and we're delighted to have you. Obviously, in the Premier League table so far, mixed fortunes for our respective teams. You have been absolutely flying, whereas we have been getting spanked everywhere we go. But why don't you tell the viewers a bit about your fantasy football exploits, how long you've been playing, how you got involved in it and interested in it, etc.
Yeah, sure. So I love sports. I love football, and I've already have experience playing Fantasy Premier League for the NBA and for the NFL. So I'm pretty familiar with that, although it's a different setup and different style of play in terms of tactics for those respective sports. But I got into FPL 3 years ago. So this is officially my third year fully playing. I'm a very competitive person, and I like the tactical side of sports. So I always wanted to be my own manager on the pitch, kind of like a Klopp or a Pep Guardiola. I wouldn't call myself an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but maybe this game week I think I've bottled it really badly. But moving forward to, first season when I started 3 years ago, the pandemic was just starting, right? So I had a lot more time on my hands, and I thought, you know what? Let me dip my feet in the water and get involved and start to play. And at that time, I didn't really know the rules of the game. I used my chips and hits right, left, and center. I didn't really have a strategy or a game plan in mind. When it was preseason, I didn't have 500 templates like I did this season. That's of course that's an exaggeration, but I really enjoy the analytics. I love the stats, and I love the eye test on the pitch in terms of which players to look out for every game week and which players to transfer out and transfer in, as well as my favorite, the differential picks, the picks that will stand out, and less effective ownership players that will still give you the points like those premium assets without you having to break your bank for premium assets, but you're still getting that in a differential. So this is my third full season playing. The first season when I started, I only started taking it seriously mid-season, and I ended up finishing around 1 million. And then the second season, which was my first fully serious season, I finished in 70K. I was in 50K for a good chunk of the season in the world, my overall rank. And then when I played the second free hit that was given to us, I played it a bit too soon before that double game week 36. I had played it in double game week 34. And that really ruined my rank. And I just had a terrible game week. And I took that one personally. It took me a bit to brush it off the chin and move on to the next game week. But still, top 70K finish is pretty good. I was still within that top 100K, and of course below that, very close to the top 50K, but it was too late. Anyway, this is my third full season now, and I'm very much so committed, all guns blazing. Let me aim high for that top 50K once again, and let me do my best. And this season, now that I've have a lot more experience with strategies, I am not taking as much hits as before, and I'm not using my chips, right, left, and center whenever I feel, like I had a poor game week. I'm strategizing and planning a lot more. This preseason also I did my best to create drafts and try to bring in players who I felt would stand out.
Perfect. Now, Colm, take note of what Miss Melina said there about not using your chips early. I do know that you've used your free hit already, and that one went by the wayside. So, but listen to the master here. She is imparting important knowledge to you. So that was directly just for you, Colm. But the game week that you said you played your free hit last year, if I remember correctly, that was the famous triple captain Salah versus free hitters.
Yes, it was. It was.
And Salah in the second game pretty much made the free hitters
He
regret their
destroyed
choices.
it. He really destroyed it because I think he had a hat trick in that second game.
He definitely at least had a double and some assists, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But yeah, that was a phenomenal game. And actually, it was the start of my comeback against one of my buddies in a head-to-head league that I have. We go against each other each year for a full Irish breakfast. And it was the start of my comeback because I was trailing way behind. And that Salah tripping captain really ate some road for me. But in terms of assets that you've owned over the 3 seasons, what player would you say has been one of your favourite or most yielding players? Obviously, we know Salah is the god of FPL at the moment, but outside of Mo,
this season, or you mean in general?
Let's do both. Why not?
So in general, this player was linked to us, then flirted with Chelsea, and then ended up going to Barcelona. No other than Leeds Rafinha. Rafinha was a type of player. He wasn't a premium price tag. Later on, he did, of course, go on in price. But with Bamford being injured most of the season last season and still not yet fully fit, under Marcelo Bielsa's team, Rafinha was that explosive player, the fox in the box, and a player I could have right in my midfield. They had a good run of fixtures, and he would turn up. He wasn't a player I would feel, a lot reluctant on unless it was bad fixtures. But if they had a good run of fixtures, I knew he would deliver with 2 goals and assist, a goal and assist, but he would still get me points. And sometimes last season he did get me a lot bonus points as well, which was great. If you're not taking a hit again, you'll get the full on bonus points. Another player will go to the defensive back line now. And unfortunately, he's left the Premier League, was Antonio Rudiger. Antonio Rudiger, defensive backline wise, the attacking threat that this guy brought on the pitch, other defenders were scared of him. Other opponents were scared of him. And he's very much so has that attacking threat. Wasn't so expensive for me. And there was times where I even doubled up on Reece James, Alonso. I went Alonso over Rudiger, and that costed me. There were times where Reece James really shined, and I still took Alonso, and that killed me. But there were also times where Reece James and Rudiger both hauled, and they'd end up getting clean sheets, they'd get bonuses, and they'd get full-on minutes. They were nailed to start, and Tuchel wasn't really rotating them in terms of Tuchel roulette. I survived. Other players, let's go to a bit of a differential. Livramento. As we all know, last season's Livramento, we got the best out of him, and I think we destroyed him now because he's injured. But this season's Livramento, I feel, could be someone like Andreas Pereira or Kieran Trippier. Speaking of Kieran Trippier, that worldie was incredible on the weekend, and then of course he got red carded.
Which was annulled by VAR afterwards.
Yeah, it was overruled by VAR. But when the red card happened, I was like, oh, I don't own him anymore because they already sold him for Walker. I went Man City double defense. And this game week, I don't even think we should talk about it because that's how awful I did. But moving on into this season, like even last season, Arsenal-wise, Saka was a player I had from the start till the end. And he really, really delivered week in and week out. This season, Saka's price is 8 million, so I avoided and I went Martinelli from game week 1. I had triple up Arsenal, Ramsdale, Jesus, and Martinelli, and it's been paying off for me. I regret not having Odegaard. I think he's a great differential pick, and I know his ownership has gone off through the roof now. And also someone that last season delivered a lot, and I know their team has yet to make proper signings, is Vardy. You can never underestimate a Vardy party, as well as someone like KDH, Drewsbury Hall. Drewsbury Hall last season was really cheap asset. Someone if you had enough money, he would enable you to still get a premium forward or a premium defender. And last season, because most of the forwards were either rubbish or injured all the time, we didn't really have much options in the forward line. And with Ronaldo not having the greatest of fixtures at times, there wasn't much striker options. So I think I stood with even Tony most of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Perfect. One of my favorite assets, and I don't know if you would remember this guy, was JJ Okocha. I've been playing football for quite some time, and he was just an amazing little baller. It was kind of back in the
And
days when
not expensive too.
not expensive, and it was around the time when you were trying to make up your mind between Gerrard or Lampard,
Yes.
getting in Thierry Henry, and obviously then Ronaldo broke the game when he arrived the first time to the Premier League, if you remember. But I just wanted to speak briefly, actually, regarding Arsenal players, because obviously there's quite a number of assets at the moment that
Yes.
do look a bit tempting. And I've been looking at this debacle myself because I did also go with Ramsdale in goal. And now I'm starting to consider maybe I want the option of 3 outfield Arsenal players. And with Sanchez looking pretty rock
I was
steady,
about to say Sanchez. Yes.
um, could there be temptation to either get an Arsenal defender or maybe bring in that Odegaard if you have the financial space outfield to really beef up your possible points production beyond just clean
So
sheets?
what I really don't like is if you're taking a hit for a keeper, a -4, how are you going to get that -4 back? Either your keeper has to make save points or your keeper has to keep oftentimes clean sheets. And Sanchez, I think you're getting a lot more value in him, which I should have realized from the start. Actually, in the start, I had Ederson because I felt like I'm guaranteed a clean sheet. But then I felt I was cock blocking a Man City third player. So if I was going to go Gundogan in midfield, I wouldn't be able to do that because I already have Haaland and Cancelo before I took Walker as my double City defense this week. Then I thought, okay, all right, let me not do that and let me do Ramsdale, just like you did, Rebel. And then now I'm here, just like you, thinking, now I'm blocking an outfield player for Arsenal. I could go for a William Saliba, who's really cheap, Zinchenko, who's offering a lot on and off the ball, and he's very, very adaptable. When you see him on the pitch when we're transitioning, he's always in the right areas. And I think he's the type of player who's going to get an assist, maybe not on the score sheet, but I think his minutes are pretty much nailed at the moment, and I think he's getting above 60 minutes, so you're not worried there. He's a very, very good player, and I think he's someone to have in your team. Or William Saliba, my word, is that player a very good center back for us and in the Premier League. I'm glad to see him shine. But I do agree with you. Even someone like Odegaard, I feel, is offering a lot more than Saka. I just feel like Saka this season has yet to flourish and yet to shine. I don't think he's had that breakthrough moment yet from the last 3 games. But then again, there we go. It's only a small sample size. It's only been the first 3 games. So I don't want to do any knee jerk reactions.
Absolutely, absolutely. I suppose what I was looking at, kind of in the kind of position that I'm in at the moment, is possibly rolling the game week 4 transfer, and obviously with game week 5 right on top of it, then
Yes.
downgrading my Ramsdale or downgrading the price point of Ramsdale to Sanchez, which would leave me with an additional 0.5. And then I started with Jesse Lingard as a sort of a differential kind of possibility where he may have got off the ground running at Nottingham Forest, similar
Yes.
to what he'd done at West Ham. So that would give me the option of going from 6 to 6.6 in the midfield, possibly.
Oh,
Or
that's good. You get more options in a 6.6 mid.
exactly. So Odegaard at 6.4 currently would be one that'd be on there. And then alternatively, the other option then would be a 4 million defender to a 4.6, which is not really floating my boat. But if I was to do it, it would be like maybe to look at a 6.6 price point midfielder. And again,
Can I suggest another option, Rebel? Sorry, in midfield, a 6.6. Some of the options I'd suggest. You might not be happy with this, but I really think Eze is a great player to have, or Rodrigo from Leeds. Leeds have really good fixtures. He's been performing week in and week out. I think a lot of people have brought him in. His ownership has gone up. Rodrigo,
absolutely.
with the new manager bounce that Leeds are having from Jesse Marsh, no one expected them to do that to Chelsea, and they dominated Chelsea um, at Ellen Road.
Absolutely. And talking of the domination of Chelsea, that brings us nice and neatly into the game week 3 review. And Rodrigo was somebody I was actually keeping an eye on, believe it or not, for game week 4. But I actually plumped for Harrison in the end.
Oh,
So
Harrison is a good pick, yes. And his price is a lot cheaper too, correct?
he's at
I believe
6.
he is a lot cheaper. Because Rodrigo is 6.3 now.
Correct.
Harrison's, I think, just 6. So you're
He's
getting that 0.3.
that 0.3 there, and there's a bit of value there. But let's not, it'd be remiss of us not to talk about game week 3. Obviously, there's been some wild results this season
Yeah.
so far.
Yes.
So I might combine the review of game week 3 with something that we like to do here on the channel and on this particular show, and that is the wall of shame. So, Miss Melina, I'm going to ask you firstly on game week 3 and the absolute catastrophe that it was for most fantasy football players, and what teams or players that you'd be putting on the wall of shame.
My wall of shame first starts with my entire big at the back defensive back line. I thought, like many other managers, Manchester City double city defense would be a walk in the park, keep my eyes closed, and not have to watch the football behind my couch. But now we're here, and Cancelo on 0 points with a yellow card, Walker on 1 point, Reece James on 1 point, Nico Williams doing FO, and Trent yet to play. And need I say, Rebel, this speaks volumes. My bench has 13 points, which is entirely a lot more than my defensive backline. And the amount of premiums I have in my defensive backline isn't giving me the points. So now I'm thinking, should I change my strategy? Should I change my formation? Here I am now starting to question every single decision I've made. Later on into the wall of shame, Kulusevski. Kulusevski, I thought, was going to be a great attacking asset for Tottenham. Not paying the price of Son, not paying the premium price of Kane. And in the first game week, he really shined. He really was one of their best players on the pitch. And this game week, they only scored 1 to Wolves. And Kane, of course, with the goal. But Kulusevski, no involvement whatsoever. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm buying you for 8 million instead of Bukayo Saka, instead of someone like Wilfred Zaha, who has been an explosive player, and you want to give me 3 points. Erling Haaland. I feel like after that game against Newcastle, Pep Guardiola spoke up and said, I'm not afraid to bench Haaland. We're going to rotate because we need to give each player minutes, match fitness, whatever. Now I'm starting to think Haaland, yes, he got yes, he, last game weeks when you captained him, he did deliver. Eventually Jesus was the one who won the Haaland Salah Jesus debate last game week. This game week, we have yet to see what Salah to play today. But Haaland, I feel like Kane is giving a lot more in terms of returns. It really hates me to say that because I'm an Arsenal fan, but unfortunately, that's the facts. And it looks like Kane is giving a lot more GA and contribution and even getting bonus points than Haaland. And Kane's minutes are fixed as well. So that's someone that if, maybe I'll give it one more game week. And if I see, him not getting any involvement in terms of actually contributing on the pitch, then it might be an easy swap to Harold Kane.
Absolutely. And I suppose just kind of picking up on the Kulusevski issue, I, in my naivety, took a -4 to get him in this week because I thought I needed to cover a Tottenham attacking option because
Yes.
it was kind of scaring me, the fact that I had no Spurs whatsoever in the way that they were playing. But Wolves again seem to be that team that seem to be proving that having a Wolves defender is a good idea because they do not seem to concede high goal defeats a lot of the time, and they do seem to have a knack for getting clean sheets. Is Wolverhampton a team that, when you're looking at your captaincies in the future, that even with the great Mo Salah, should be kind of hesitant to go for him against that fixture?
So initially at Wolves, a lot of people had the likes of Neto and Podence. Those are the two assets that I was considering. But I don't think Wolves have enticing fixtures anymore. I don't think they have the greatest of fixtures coming up. And I know, yes, they can keep the attacking threat in terms of defensive backline, but they do have some tough fixtures if you're looking long term. They have to play Man City soon. They have to play Liverpool. They have to play Southampton, and they're playing Newcastle next week. I don't think it's going to be an easy game for us. But like I said, no team should be underestimated. Look at the likes of Fulham to Liverpool. No one expected Fulham to really dominate that game in the first game week.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. They play Liverpool and Manchester City back to back in game week 7
Yes.
and game week 8, which are absolutely horrendous fixtures. Notwithstanding that fact, then game week 10, I think, which is the second one back after the international break. They're playing Chelsea, so there are a few stinkers now coming up for them. And then obviously it's greenlit up until the World Cup after that. So
Yes.
maybe they come back into vogue with a wild card if you've held onto it around that particular period of time. But in terms of the defenders this week, as you said, the big bill defenders didn't really deliver for teams. And then in terms of the attacking assets, even again, there was a lot of people that popped for Jesus as captain over both Haaland
Yes.
and Salah.
Yes.
And could we be made to eat our humble pie if Salah goes on a madness tonight?
You know what, Rebel? I'm just a disclaimer. Rebel did not pay me to say this. I think Man United can draw to Liverpool tonight if the game isn't canceled or postponed, because Monday afternoon people are already having their beers and getting drunk, and there's a Glazers out protest at Old Trafford. So hopefully, fingers crossed, for safety, first things first, it doesn't go out of hand and it's really controlled. But if the game was postponed, my vice captain automatically is Gabriel Jesus, like most of us have. So he would then become my captain. But for now, if Salah really doesn't deliver today, at least one goal or one assist, then I'm really gonna lose my patience with him. It seems like he hasn't really shined much this season. Yes, um, he did give me points last week when I captained him, but overall, if you're looking at from game week 1 to 3, not much. Jesus has been performing a lot better than him, and you could say Jesus, out of the striker options up front, he's been one of the most prominent ones and most consistent ones in terms of points returns, whether it's a goal or an assist, and even getting bonus points on the board. If you're looking at Haaland, not much there. Vardy, yes, Vardy did get a return this week, and along with even Tony did get on the score sheet for Brentford this week. I know a lot of people had him as a kind of a differential pick or a low ownership pick, and Jimmy Vardy as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I suppose that moves us swiftly along to having a quick look at number one, the game week 4 and game week 5 week fixtures, because obviously there's our first ever midweek fixtures
Yes,
coming up rather soon. So I'm going to bring this up under the watch list players because obviously you mentioned Neto already earlier on the show,
yes.
and he is a target apparently for both our respective clubs. Where would you see Neto fitting in terms of a fantasy football asset if he arrived on either side? Would it devalue his worth to FPL managers, or do you think it could enhance it?
I think it could enhance us, but I do think that would be one to watch once the signing happens, if it's either to us or to you guys. I know other clubs are looking at the same player for the exact same reason, because you need that coverage down the wings and to strengthen your team overall. He's a quality player, and he is someone who has that Premier League experience if we're talking just transfers in general. But as an FPL asset, that's someone I would keep on the watch list and monitor for 1 or 2 game weeks if the signing was to happen, to see how he performs with Odegaard on one side and how he does in terms of on down the wings, how Arteta is going to play him, what kind of minutes is he going to get, and how he does well in training is how he's going to transpire on the pitch. Is he even going to perform? When Lukaku initially came to the Premier League, and I know this is a different position entirely, but Lukaku, when he first came back to the Premier League, I rushed and brought him in. He delivered for 1 or 2 game weeks, and then we all know what happened there. So I feel like it's not someone, yes, it's exciting to have a new toy in your prem, but I'd probably wait 1 or 2 game weeks and see how he does in terms of the eye test.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just have a quick read of the fixtures here, and maybe you could give your viewpoint on possible assets that could be worthy of coming in. So we open the week with Southampton, Manchester United.
Yes.
Then we have Brentford, Everton, Brighton, Leeds, and Chelsea, Leicester. Is there anybody that kind of jumps out that is being undervalued in any of those fixtures, do you think?
Yes. So surprisingly, Gordon from Everton. Last season, a lot of people stuck to Gordon from Everton because he was a cheap asset and he was actually giving goals and assists. But then we're going to look at Brentford as the opponents. Brentford, you think even Tony and Buemo, but you can also think of differentials like Henry or De Silva. I know a lot of people, as their Bailey replacement for last week, they did take De Silva, and unfortunately he didn't deliver last game week, but he's pretty much nailed to start. He does get good involvements. Preferably, I would go with Mbeumo or even Tony. Even Tony would be my first preference if you're looking at that forward line, leading the line, attacking option. And then Brighton Leeds, I'd probably look at Brighton players. Differentials for me would be Denny Welbeck. Denny Welbeck is someone he's an ex-Manchester United legend. I wouldn't say legend, but well-known player for Manchester United. And, this season at Brighton, he's really starting to turn it around. I know it's a small sample size, so I don't want to give him too much praise, but I do think he's getting good involvement. He played really, really well in game week 2, and in game week 1, he shined. I think he's someone that could be a great involvement in your team and a great asset, and someone who could possibly give you the best possible points if you're looking at a Brighton asset, or even someone like Pascal Gross. I know a lot of people are kind of hyping him up or something, but I do feel that it might be a purple patch for Gross. That's just my personal opinion. I'd prefer someone like Trossard. Trossard could be a great differential. He's not expensive as well. And then if you're looking at Leeds, Rodrigo, Harrison, and Aronson, I think that's the last player is also a new signing for them, American as well. And Leeds look like they're on a good start so far with the Jesse March as their new manager from last season. I think Leeds are dominating so far, and they're pretty much being underestimated.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oddly enough, teams that I'd picked at the start of the season to possibly struggle due to their departures are startlingly doing absolutely wonderfully, Leeds amongst them. But that moves us on then to the back end of the Saturday fixtures. Chelsea playing Leicester, Liverpool playing Bournemouth, City are playing Paddy Vieira's Palace, and of course Arsenal are playing Fulham. I want to just briefly start with Fulham and Arsenal. Obviously, Mitrovic has tricked quite a number of managers into bringing them in.
He's one of the biggest FPL trolls. Even in the past, when Fulham, many years ago, used to be in the Premier League. And then game week 1, he hauls and everyone brings him in. To me, I'm not convinced. I really think it's short-term planning. Maybe a one game week punt, sure, go ahead and press the button. If you're wildcarding, I don't feel convinced with him. I'm probably going to eat my words the end of game week 4 at Rebel, but I'm not convinced with Mitrovic. And if you're looking at Arsenal assets, the same 3, I'd say Martinelli. If you're looking defensively, Zinchenko or William Saliba. And then up front, of course, no other than Gabriel Jesus, the wonder horse for us.
Absolutely. City, I think we all worried about Pep Roulette at the start of the season.
Yes.
And so far, he has been rather reserved. But of course, European competition hasn't really factored as of yet. It's a game a week, apart from obviously this short turnaround that we will have between 4 and 5. But who do you think is the most nailed-on players really week on week once we get into the cut and thrust of the season?
So once we get into, a lot more competitions coming through for Manchester City to play through, and we're going to see Pep Roulette take place. I honestly feel Haaland will not survive Pep Roulette. I feel a couple of games he will be benched and will suffer. And I think it's an easy swap, as I said earlier, to go with Harold Kane. And I think Harry Kane, with the price point that he is and the fixtures that they have, it's convincing, and it sounds tasty, it sounds enticing, and sounds like something I'd be more willing to press the button on than someone like St. Maximum or someone like Callum Wilson, someone like even Tony, someone like Wilson. Wilson last season, after he came back from that injury, offered a lot in terms of their fixtures. But I don't think Newcastle necessarily have the easiest of fixtures upcoming. They do have some tough fixtures coming up. They still have to play Man United, they have to play Brentford, and they have to play Tottenham later on in October. But short-term wise, Newcastle don't necessarily have the worst of fixtures, so it could be a good punt. If you're looking at Man City, who's going to survive Pep Roulette, I'd say defensive line, Cancelo, Walker. They might rotate with Stones and Ake. You saw Ake get hooked in the first 20 minutes, so he didn't really survive minutes-wise. And then Diaz came on. Diaz was someone last season I kept in my team with Diaz and Cancelo double City defense. And here's something I'll say, Rebel. I don't feel like you need to go big at the back. I really feel like this season, I don't know, maybe it's just because I had a couple of bad games with my defenders. I feel maybe the strategy is no longer big at the back, or in terms of, is it the fixtures, is it the players not turning up, what's going on with that. And I feel like you don't really need to do the double defense wise, because it's looking like they're not keeping clean sheets, whether it's the fixtures or whether these smaller teams actually starting to put in a convincing performance. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what the recipe is. But personally, I feel like I'm going to step away from the double defense unless I know it's an easy fixture to bank on, like the likes of a Bournemouth against Man City, for example.
Absolutely, yeah. It's interesting actually that you mentioned the big at the back, because I am seeing a lot of our fantasy football nerds kind of crunching the numbers, and there are a lot of high-priced defenders getting in amongst the areas, but they're just not finishing. So maybe it's just a matter of time before we start seeing some yield. But as you say, at present, the price and points and as Colin would say, the points per million just aren't stacking for
Yes.
FPL managers at the moment. But briefly, I suppose we'll tuck on into the Sunday games.
Mm-hmm.
Wolves are playing Newcastle. Stevie G's Villa, who last season
Oh,
had
boy.
quite a number of interesting assets, are playing David Moyes' West Ham, and then it finishes with Spurs and Nottingham Forest at 4:30. But the Villa and West Ham start to the season has been less than desirable, I'd imagine, again, from watching on a fantasy football perspective.
Sorry, what was the question?
The Villa and West Ham starts to the
Oh, in
season.
terms of who to look out for?
Yeah.
You know what? Look where West Ham are in the table, Rebel. Honestly, the signings that they had haven't really been convincing. Maybe you could argue Skamaka as a punt, but it doesn't sound enticing to me. I'd avoid Villa, Digne. Nah. I think
Yeah.
both are a void at the moment. You have better assets than Leicester, even. And, that's saying a lot because Leicester have yet to sign a proper player other than a goalkeeper. I'd rather have Madison in there if I could afford, or someone like Drewsbury Hall. Aston
Absolutely.
Villa and West Ham are, no, I don't really feel like someone enticing from there. Last season, you got a lot from Ben Rama. You got a lot from Antonio if his ankles were fit. Watkins, you could argue. Watkins at 7.4, not so bad. But then I'd rather have Zaha. Zaha's giving me a lot more output for 7th.
Yes, indeed. And I suppose thinking about the squad that Aston Villa have in particular, it's actually mind-boggling that there
Yes.
aren't more assets that are
Yes.
delivering. And
Yes.
I believe they're about to get Ismail Sarr, who's another, I suppose, enticing attacking threat that could possibly deliver a bit of change. But it's a team we need to avoid, isn't it, at the moment? I remember a couple of seasons ago, a guy called Ricky Van Wolfswinkel absolutely charaded and convinced a load of managers that he was an asset that was going to bag goals. And I think he absolutely stank the FPL asset table out. And
you know
I
who
think
that reminds me of? Someone like when Watford were in the Premier League. Thank God they're no longer in the Premier League. Dennis and King. Last season, I had the balls to captain King. I think it was Dennis or King, and he got a red card, like early on in the game, in the first half of the game, and there goes my whole game week. And it was the start of the game week 2, Rebels. So your captain's already gone, and there you are now, thinking, what's the point of the rest of the game week? Because my game week already started off with a mare. There's always those trolls like that who, you think they're going to turn up, you think it's an easy fixture, and they'll finally turn up to stay in the Premier League, and then they put no effort whatsoever.
Absolutely. And I suppose we're getting to that point of the show where we're kind of coming up into the wrap-up stage. So there's just a few more remaining questions. The first one I have for you is, there's obviously a bit of a mystique and a hoodoo over never captaining the early kickoff.
Yes.
Do you think that the numbers bear out this hoodoo, that it is actually something, even with the likes of a Mo Salah, that you just don't take the chance that the kibosh is on before you even start with the early kickoff.
Rebel, I've experienced this 3 seasons now, and I'm still someone who takes that as gospel. Never back the early kickoff, especially with Liverpool. And you know what? To be honest, in my experience, I've only noticed that whenever I've captained Mo Salah. Mo Salah in the early kickoff fixture goes ghost. It's almost like he wants to imitate Casper the Ghost. And I've noticed it a couple of times when I've done it. I thought, you know what, this game week might be different. This game week might be different. And there I am with only appearance points. There I am with only 1 assist. I'll take 1 assist over nothing. And there were times where I only had appearance points. And at that time, other people were other managers who were more logical than me, captained someone like Sadio Mane. Last season, Sadio Mane delivered a lot, and a lot of people underestimated him in terms of points. But when they had a really good fixture, sometimes he delivered equal, if not more, than Mo Salah. That's just an example. Or some people even went brave and captained a defender like Cancelo, Trent, or Andy Robertson.
Absolutely, there, yeah. The Mane versus Salah debate was always one that kind of raged around local leagues that I was playing in,
Yes.
because you either went with one or the other, and seldom you went with both. But I suppose the second question is, again, I suppose, kind of taking a long-term view. Obviously, this is a strange year in fantasy football with a World Cup smack dab in the middle of December, or late November, early December. The chip usage this year is going to be quite interesting, because obviously they're giving free changes during the period of the World Cup. So obviously I wouldn't be recommending, as would you, I'd say, not to change early in the World Cup, because obviously injuries and points
Yes.
I think they're freezing the price, actually.
They are freezing the prices in the World Cup, so thank God. So it's almost like a third wild card in a way.
Absolutely. But the wild card, there's many theories around this season. Some people are saying that the sweet spot is just after the international break, week 8.
Okay.
Other people are looking at maybe trying to couple it with using their bench boost, because obviously, depending on the state of your bench, the bench boost chip is probably one of the most difficult to time.
Yes.
But if you were able to mingle it with the wild card and the World Cup, because knowing that you can undo any value spread that you've done, it could make it quite enticing.
No, for sure. And I think one thing for sure is the wild card. A lot of people, some of my friends I know that play fantasy football, and they've been playing it for a couple of years, they actually press the early wild card. So some of people to bring in Darwin Núñez, and he got sent off, they wild carded that game week. Others are still keeping it for game week 4 or 5. They feel the fixtures are more enticing. And some people are saving it for around game week 7 or 8, which I feel is more logical. That's just my view. But I do think it could be a huge difference this season in terms of your output and how many points you gain, depending on how you balance out your trips, because this year is a World Cup year. That's the only reason why I feel it's different. And especially, coming back from the World Cup, who knows how many flags we're going to have with our players. And then we'll have to adjust that. But with prices being frozen, it almost feels like a third wild card. So a lot more people are like, oh, I'll still have, the prices are freezing during the World Cup. I can do my wild card now and try to catch up in mini leagues. It also depends on what you're playing for, whether you're playing for fun, whether you're playing for a prize mini league, or whether you're playing for bragging rights within your family like me. Then a lot more people would be more enticed and more, willing to play that chip to try to gain advantage on their friends.
Absolutely, Melina. And I suppose just before we wrap up, please do let the viewers know where they can find you, and what your socials are, etc.
It was great to come on the Man United agenda again, and most importantly, it was great talking Fantasy Premier League with you, Rebel. Thanks so much for inviting me and having me on the channel again. First and foremost, do make sure to subscribe to FTB Sports, the Man United agenda, if you haven't already. They do great watch-alongs for Man United, and it's often fun as a rival watching them lose and hearing Mr. B and talk. So respects to everyone in the Man United agenda. Thanks for having me. I do YouTube on my own. My channel is related to Fantasy Premier League as well, and Arsenal content. I do Arsenal post-match breakdowns, so if you do want to check out my channel, I am on the road to 3,000 subscribers, and my channel is called Miss Melina.
Thank you very much, Miss Melina. I did enjoy our chat today, and hopefully we can have further chats as the season progresses. This show, I think, will not be released until after the Manchester United versus Liverpool game. So at some time tomorrow, this is going to be released. So if you and the viewers have any questions regarding fantasy football, please do, as always, post them in the comments, and we will come back to you. And of course, the fantasy football show will be live at 8:30 on Tuesdays as normal. But thank you very much for watching. But from us, it's a very good evening to all.
Bye.